All right, we are officially recording Masterclass number 7. I'm going to hit mute all here so that we're good, but I'm going to make sure that we unmute Mr. Espegard. There we go. Just some quick thoughts here about Dane Espegard. If you don't know who Dane Espegard is, it might be because you don't look at reports, because he's on top of almost all of them. In fact, what an amazing year this past year. Let me just take you all the way back to December of 2019 for just a second. They had a mid-December launch of 20. They went from shipping $600 the first week of December to about $2,000 the second week, and then they bounced to 25,000 when they launched 20, to 39,000 and to 29,000. So they finished December with a $29,000 new business month. A total of $401,000 is going for the $3 million year and just fell short, but a $401,000 total business December, followed up by, as he launched at 20 for the big dance and another 4 for the backup, another $126,000 in new business for January. January. And another 400 and change, I think $427,000. So $828,000 really in 10 weeks around the holidays there. Here's what's interesting, and here's going to be the topic we're going to start with today. 33 AMPRs shipped $97,000. That is $9,000 per rep productivity. So we're going to talk a little bit today about an AMPR program. It sounds like that's the same type of thing that's helping Hans Hilton pop off for a 10K week. And for Brooke, I'm imagining there that you've got some SMRAs there jamming and maybe some PRs coming from your AMs, leading to a $13,000 new business week. Congratulations, Brooke. So without further ado, Dane Espegard, let's just dive right in. Congratulations on a $100,000 a week. I recognize not as much new business as we're talking proportionally for these other numbers here, but still a $100,000 report here in October, really that first week of November. Congratulations, my friend. Welcome to the Masterclass. Good to have you.
Yeah, awesome to be here. Excited.
So where should we start, man? Because these are numbers that are like, wow. I've been in the business 27 years, and it's still, that's a wow, man.
In regards to the December, January, or the 100K?
Let's start there, man. Let's go to the both crazy numbers. All of them are crazy numbers. But take us back to the AMPR program last year. I mean, this just doesn't happen out of nowhere.
Yeah, so we've been doing the AMPR program specifically over winter break since, I want to say 2011 or 2012 or something like this. So this has been a many-year iteration, and it started years ago with kind of the idea of, hey, if we were to draw up like the perfect starting rep, what would be the scenario? And it was, a friend is somebody who sold a lot of Cutco, a relationship built with the manager before training, maybe even having seen a presentation prior to the start of training. And that's kind of where all of this started way back when. And we since then have kind of, created systems and been able to streamline it so that we can do this on a larger scale for the masses. I would say we haven't necessarily gotten it dialed up as well in the summer as what we have over the winter break. I don't think it's necessarily apples to apples. I think winter break provides us with a little bit easier, less barriers to entry for somebody to get started when it's like, well, I'll give this thing a shot for a couple of weeks. What do I have to lose?
Sure.
As opposed to committing my whole summer to it. So this last year, the numbers, we had a lot of room for opportunity, even based off of last year's numbers, but we launched 44 and it was 20 in a mid-December group. So every other year prior to last year, we've just done the traditional, hey, no training in December. This is for Central Region. This has been the traditional.
Pull the slingshot back for 5 to 7 weeks, right? Yeah. Really since Thanksgiving, right?
And then, since Thanksgiving, and then do a big launch that we call the big dance right after Christmas, 26th, 27th, 28th. And then the backup seminar, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Could I ask you a few questions as we go here, Dane? Yeah. If we go back for a second, when you said we, so when you start talking about we, ask the question, who would be the best? Who is involved in that discussion? Is that pilot staff? Is that your division staff?
Way back when it was pilot staff. So it
Okay.
was me sitting down with, myself and our pilot and a couple AMs and trying to figure out, how do we, run the score up for the month of January.
Yeah, and I believe if I caught them all, you might have other ones, but you said probably they have a friend on the team. Maybe they have a relationship built with the manager. I'd be curious about what that looks like. Maybe we'll ask that in a bit, and maybe they've seen even a demo ahead of time. Is there any other criteria that you guys kind of came up with, like the dream rep?
Yeah, I mean, back then it was that they actually maybe have, like, they don't just have a sample kit, but they got a full homemaker or something like that. We since have changed what this list is, but that's kind of what we
in a virtual world. It's a little different, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then you talk about the mid-December. What happened with show to training? I'm just curious about whether, if normally we do a 7-week slingshot, we know that those that we recruit in week 1, 7 weeks out before December 26th, it's not usually a great show. What was the show like? Did you find an increase over previous year?
In regards to just last year compared?
Yeah, the mid-December launch there with 20.
Well, so the show to training for those, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but last year I believe our show to training was right around 40%, low 40s, which where we had been operating in the past was about 40% in the summer. So show to training hadn't been a strong suit for us, but yes, you pull it back. So there's a little bit longer period from when they are accepted to when training is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, an increase is they're more bought in because they have a relationship with somebody that's there. Also, many of them aren't looking to start because they have finals or so there's some other factors that are in there. Right.
I guess what I'm driving at is, do we start to lose some of those? The 40% show mid-December, does that number go down to 32 if we take them out another 3 weeks after Christmas?
I don't know if it's necessarily all that. I think that it would make sense that it drops a little bit.
Okay.
But part of it, one of the reasons that we used to have I don't think we ever did a 7-week, but we ever did like the 4 or 5 week one, was to make sure that the manager had a singular focus of building that seminar, right?
Sure.
So instead of, okay, now I'm spending time on training and working with fast starters and this, it's like I could just focus 100% on building that training seminar.
So there was opportunity cost, or at least risk of that singular focus being divided with a mid-December launch. So December week 3, you launched 20. What did you guys notice?
Well, so that came from conversations with Brett Wiggins and some of the guys in Midwest. My conversation was with Brett, but I know that the previous year, Brett, Logan, I think Jake, some other guys, they kind of experimented with this. They had good results. And I remember watching that the previous year, being envious of what do they got going on over there? Because they had a pretty good pop. Yeah. And while he was doing it, I was on the phone with Brett. Like, what did you do? How'd you do it? Why are you doing this? And so I took a lot of notes from that to use the following year. So all year in 2019, I was set on, we're for sure doing, I already had the dates picked out. I was like, this is when we're doing our seminar. And so, so we added it in for a Friday. We're on 3 days still. We did Friday, Saturday, Sunday launch. And the reason that we did that, our finals for our big state schools are still in the 20s, like late teens, early 20s. They go all the way up to Christmas.
Gotcha.
So in my mind, I'm like, we'll throw this one in there, but a lot of our students won't be able to get started until after Christmas anyways. But because we did a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we actually had students that were still in the midst of finals, but it didn't conflict the training days.
Sure.
So they actually chose to still come. And that was a win. It'll be easier this year with virtual, but that was a win last year. We still had people driving to training, right? That's
very cool. What happened after that seminar with regards to the PRs? Now, we'll dive into AMPRs specifically in a second here, but I'm imagining here part of the benefit of launching mid-December is that now we've got fresh PR leads.
Yeah, in theory, that is exactly it. In implementation last year, that was one of our misses.
Okay.
So when I tell you, like, the program that I'll go through the top 50 list and that kind of stuff that I'm excited to share, that got us all of that business. If I look at what was created from PRs from those seminars, we weren't prepared for the amount of people that we were going to launch. Gotcha. And follow through on those numbers. So that's what I'm excited about this year, that, we had an amazing December, January, but we left a lot on the table.
So if you're just joining us now, the numbers keep growing here, but we're talking about an $828,000 December, January combined. and we're saying we missed. We missed getting the leads from that mid-December launch. So really, there was money left on the table. So when we hear about your goal in just a moment for 2020 into 21, it's a little more robust there. I'm sure we've got some other questions, and folks, I'll encourage you once again to post your questions in the chat. We're going to ask that if you're not a district manager and you're joining us today, we're glad that you're here. We're going to ask you to post your questions through your DM. If you're a pilot sales manager, you're welcome, again, to post your questions in that chat as well. But I know we do have some Leadership Academy people here. We'd like to keep those just to district manager type questions here. Dane, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got that mid-December launch then? Is that AMPRs? Is that where they came from?
Yeah. So, we still have all sources going, and we were still doing campus stuff, web. We do send winter mailers.
Okay.
The winter mailers wouldn't have impacted that mid-December group because
Sure.
we were dropping those a little later. So that group was meant to be, we didn't close the doors to other sources, but it was meant to be all AMPRs.
Gotcha.
And so we did it through really two kind of lines of attack, if you will. One was through social media statuses, and then the other one was through what we call top 50 lists.
Tell us about the top 50 list, because we spent quite a bit of time on statuses in the last couple of weeks here. We've had some great speakers. If you've missed them, by the way, the archives are there now for Dave Powders, for Jeff Gamboa, for Brian Hurlman as well. You can check the archives out, and if you're having troubles finding that, go to the BMDM group there on Facebook, and we'll get them to you. Dane, a little bit about number 2 there, that top 50.
Yeah, so the top 50 list, it is, what this involves is three-way texting. So the idea behind the top 50 list, and this is getting in a little bit to the specifics of our winter break trip, but I hate to bring it up nationally, but it does matter to the motivation of the rep in this situation. So for our winter break trip, the MITs to win the trip, it's a sales contest, 2-week sales contest. It's not just sell 10,000 and you go. They have to sell 10,000 and also have 3K of team builder sales. So what this does is it aligns my desire of, hey, I want your PRs, and their desire of, I want to make the trip. And so we're aligned now in the same mission in terms of what we're trying to get done.
Sure. So if they sell 20 grand and no PR business, no team builder, they don't go on the trip.
Doesn't matter. Yep. They got to have team builder.
All right.
So it
what if they have a team builder shipping 10 and they only personally sold 3?
Nope. They got to hit both.
They got to hit both. Love it.
Yep. So the idea behind the contest rules for us, we wanted the team builder number to be low, where in their mind, they're like, I can get that done.
Sure.
And also to make it so that 3K, you don't want to rely on just one launch. You never really know, right? So the idea is we could promote, and for what I did, part of the promotion was promoting 8 to 10. If you have 8 to 10 friends set for training, you should feel really confident. If you've got somewhere in the 5 to 7 range, you're probably okay with our productivity. If you have 1 to 4, I'd be pretty worried.
Wow.
And so that's part of they hear that regularly from me. Yeah. And then it's the ways that you can get people scheduled for training, social media statuses. You could send, social media DMs. And then the big one is the top 50 list. And I hype that up a ton.
Yeah. Let's go a little deep dive on the top 50 list, 3-way texting. What kind of things are they putting in the text? And if you have some of this already in a document, we'll just make sure we drop that into the handouts folder later. So
I've got all this very here you go. So afterward, Trent can post it. So I'm not going to go through necessarily the exact wording. They don't do hardly anything. So a lot of this is all in the setup to get them to make the top 50 list.
Okay.
Right. And so there's a lot of energy around talking about the type of recruiting that the top 50 list is. So the ideal person for this is somebody who got started this summer, right? Or this fall that's selling a lot of Cutco that's in our program. We just added it up this morning. We have 895 of these names and numbers ready to go for this year. Last year we had 1,000, which is what produced. So if to give you the overall numbers, I'm going to post it here in the chat. We had 44 launch, 33 were AM PRs, 29 of the 33 were from top 50. So we didn't,
Wow.
again, there's room for growth in the other areas, but we crushed the top 50 list. So that was created from 1,000 names and numbers last year. We call it top 50. Some people give us 30. Some people give us 100. Like the top guy gave us 140 last year. I think he had 10 PRs that got started over break. So who we're targeting for this is kind of the first part.
Yeah.
There's kind of three categories. First category is somebody who's a TLA member from your office, right? That's kind of the given. A lot of times people stop there though. The second category is anybody who's worked in your office, really campaign 2, campaign 3. You could go back to campaign 1 as well, that you kind of missed on. In other words, they sold 10K, somehow they slipped through the TLA net.
Sure.
We didn't convert them, but they were a good person. You had a good relationship with them. So it's reaching back out to that person. And then the third category is anybody who you'd want their network. That's another person to reach back out to. So right now I'm 100% focused on in my organization. I'm just getting as many resources as I can built up. We'll start going after like approaching those later, but right now we're just in the full build mode.
Just trying to call those 1,000 names.
Trying to corral them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We're not going to reach out until mid-November, late November.
Okay.
For this year. So last year we used basically the whole month of November to create these lists. And then right around Thanksgiving, we started approaching them.
Gotcha. And if my math's right here, we're talking about 30 names to generate one recruit in the end.
Yeah, it was about 30. I think it was 34 and a half last year. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. So is there a thought this year that we're going for more than 1,000? That was the number last year. That was a bogey.
Yeah. And so part of it is, when I'm coaching the man, I just had a DM or division staff meeting this morning. And, I think that what I was targeting, I said, hey, new managers, if you're in the ballpark if you're in the ballpark of 250 for total, I feel like if it's your first winter break, that's solid. And you're going to have some really good, like the productivity from this group. The number Trent shared beginning, 9,000 is the productivity. That's from those people all the way to today.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. So it wasn't January productivity, but those 33 have added up to sell 320,000 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. That makes more sense.
So the 250 is a benchmark that I think because this program, the outreach and the interviewing should be done solely by the DM. So there's a little bit of a lid of what's possible with just you, right? So 250, I feel like if you're a first year manager, that's pretty solid. Okay. The vets, I've been promoting to them getting to 500. 500 is a lot. And for many years that I did this program, I got between my lowest was probably as a pilot office was like 400 was a bad year. And my best years were around 700. And then this last year we got to 1,000. And part of that is because my developments, MITs, right, were within my office. I think that's a really big thing. When you're a district, you got to be looking at my district. So if you had 2 branches this summer, who's on their roster, that should also be in this mix.
Gotcha. Aaron's asking, Dane, do you have a text that you send out for scoops?
We used one this year. Aaron, to answer the question, because I know, Aaron, you've had experience doing this program in the past also. First, it should always be a phone call first, right? So in other words, when we're reaching back out to the scoops, what Aaron's referring to, I believe, is scooping up these people that are not in the net right now, right? So people that you haven't had communication with in a while. So what we did first is we made a phone call to them. A lot of them don't answer. And then the text was something along the lines of, hey, so-and-so, been a little while. I hope this semester is going great. I wanted to reach out to talk to you about our winter break opportunity. A lot of past reps are coming back to make some extra cash over the break. We also have a winter break trip that a lot of people are shooting for. Would you be open to hearing a couple of the details? That's it.
Gotcha. And I imagine most are pretty receptive to at least talking and connecting.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's fun. Great question, Aaron. Thank you for that. That's good. Hey, other questions and other I guess, remarks or proof. If some of you have done this in the past, we'd love to see those in the chat here. We've got Lindsay, who's going to do 13K new business next week. Once you have the names, what does the reach out look like, right? Do you do only three-way text messages, or do you call them?
Only three-way messages. Let me table that for a second, because I think there's a nuance to the collection that is really important before we get to the outreach.
Great.
And I'll also talk about how we do the interview a little differently with these people. So when it comes to the outreach, I was just talking to my managers this morning about this concept. The way that we do this is we have a conference call series to set up winter break.
Okay.
So the conference call series is basically, it's not a division thing. It's got to be just the DM. And the DM is all these people that they're trying to get involved. They're going to have all these conversations to get them to one central conference call, right? Okay. We've done ours on Sunday nights. I do them on Sundays at 9, simply because I find that I have the least amount of conflict from my MITs with fraternity meetings or study groups or anything else. So the first one that you do, I have recordings of all these that I can also post.
Great.
So we just did we're 3 weeks into this program. So my first one was 3 weeks ago Sunday. And we tried to get as many people as we could. So the idea was, hey, Trent, you're interested in getting some details? Awesome. Hey, would you do me a favor? Would you be able to hop on a Zoom on 9 p.m. on Sunday? It's a lot easier for me to explain at one time than it is for me to explain at 40. Right. And they're all like, yep. So we had a lot of people that were on that call. That initial call, and I have an agenda as well as a video of me running it. And essentially it's, here's where we're at for the year. You make people feel great again. And then after that, you go back through and talk about what you're trying to get done by the end of the year, for the start of the year. You recognize some people that maybe haven't been recognized in a while. So, the idea behind that is to get them feeling like they felt when they were at Vector, right? Of like, oh yeah, this is cool. This is fun. Then we hype up the winter break trip. We also connect their activity over winter break to securing a summer position the next year.
I got you.
Right. So the conversation there is, hey, we have a lot of people that are working and winter break's kind of like a tryout for that position for next summer. So go for the trip. You get paid for everything you sell, because sometimes you'll have somebody say, well, I don't even know if I can go on the trip, especially right now with COVID, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And it's like, well, hey, John, the best thing about it is you still get paid for every dollar a tucker that you sell. So let's say, for instance, that you went for it, you couldn't go on the trip later because of school or because of whatever. You sold 10,000, but you still made $3,000. I think that would actually be more impactful than the trip.
Yeah.
On top of that, you'd also secure yourself a summer position, a paid leadership position within our office. Right. And you also would probably have a couple buddies on the team. So if you choose not to go on the trip, that's totally fine. But John, I would rather have that discussion with you whether or not you can go after you qualify, not before.
Sure.
Because John, there's a lot of people that have told me in the past, man, I just don't know if I can. But once they qualify, they almost always figure out a way to go on the trip.
I gotcha.
So that's a big part of making sure. So that conference call, we hype it up. We talk about the top 50 list being due 2 weeks after that first call. We have and then at the end of that call, it's like, hey guys, we have one more call next Sunday night. Not one more, we have another call next Sunday night. Make sure that you're on that. So a key part of this then is the next Sunday night, I'm going to screen share our Google sheet where they put their top 50 list. An important part of this is you have to have an early mover.
Okay.
All right. So let's say I have 10 people. I want 1 or 2 people to already have completed their top 50 list a week before the deadline, so that when I screen share, I can say, oh, Hans, by the way, awesome. My man Hans here already got his list done. It's not due till next week, but let me just show Hans is here. Hans, by the way, who did you put on this list? How long did it take you? Right. So the idea there is, I've got proof that people are doing it. And then I also have got somebody to do some Q&A with on there. I'm going to screen share if that's fine with you, Mr. Booth. So this is what our top, Trent, I think you got to give me, or John, give me screen share capability if that is all right. let me know if that if that works. But when we do this, we get the lists on there. There is the way that you get the lists is one-on-one conversations. The conference calls don't make it happen. I've had, there's a lot of people in my office I've had 2 actual longer phone calls with and followed up with 3 texts that still haven't done it. And the deadline for us was this Saturday.
Gotcha.
So that doesn't mean I'm not going to get them. I'm going to continue to follow up. And my third option, after they've told me twice they were going to do it, hop on Zoom, screen share, show it to them, and help them understand why this is important and why I need their help. So that's the name collection part. Any other questions on that?
Again, we'll welcome you to post questions in the chat there if you're looking for any clarification there, and we'll look for some follow-up materials coming afterwards. Looks like the chat is cleared out. So, Dane, go ahead.
Okay. So then with the outreach, what we do, we focus on Sundays for these. I'll typically set aside 3 hours for like 100 names. I think that metric matters, by the way, when you're doing your planning.
Say that again.
Yep. 100 names for 3 hours. And so this is the way it would go, right? So I've got, let's say Scotty's my first MIT. Let's say I'm going to do this from 3 to 6 on Sunday. So Scotty's the first one. I would set up a time with my MIT. So I'd say, Scotty, you're my 3 o'clock. I really need you to follow through on that time because I've only got a certain amount of time I can do these, right? And then I would set up Jeremy's my 4:30. And so what I'd say is, so Scotty, at 3 o'clock, I'm going to call you, just be by your computer. So at 3 o'clock, I call Scotty, we hop on Zoom, we look at his sheet, and I say, all right, man, so we're going to start going through these now. So here's how we're going to do this. Scotty, you're going to send, here, let me send you a text real quick. There you go. Scotty, I want you to send that to the first 10 people individually. So they got to be individual texts. And then tell me once you get to the 10th. That initial text, it's in the approaches that I'll post, but it's basically, hey, hope all is well. Just a heads up, I gave your name to my manager, Dane. He's going to reach out to you about some winter break positions. Not sure if you're interested. Either way, just do me a favor and respond. That's it. In about 4 minutes, they get a text from me, right? So my text then goes to, so Scotty's initial text is just to his friend. Then I come in a few minutes later with a text to Scotty and his friend. There's an approach for this. Hey, so-and-so, you don't know me personally, whatever, right? And the approach will be in there. Don't worry about what it is. And then from that, it's worded very laid back. The whole recruiting process of this is super laid back, no pushaways. So the idea behind this is when I get them on the phone, it's very, hey, your buddy Scotty's done great. We want to work with as many Scotty's friends as possible. So I asked him who he thought would do great. He gave me your info. I wanted to at least give you the details. So if you're open to it, I'd love to set up a time where we could FaceTime 20 minutes. I could walk you through the details. If it sounds like a great fit, we can talk about how to get you started. If not, at least you know a little bit more about what Scotty does. And then I interview them one-on-one. Last year, 90+% of these were FaceTime. And I actually start the quote unquote interview by saying, hey, Loretta, like I said to you on the phone when we talked yesterday, this is not an interview. I'm actually just going to walk you through the details. And to be open with you, we want to work with as many Scotty's friends as possible. So I'm going to walk you through the details. And if it seems like to you it'd be a great fit, we can talk about how to get you started on the team. And if not, at least you know more about what Scotty does. But either way, I'm going to ask you what your thoughts are at the end. Cool. And at the end, I ask for the order. Right. So I go through it super laid back, but hey, is this something you think you could do well with? And there's also a recording of me doing a one-on-one. I can post that also. Right. So all of these we've been doing this for a few years now. So we've got everything.
Couple thoughts here, Dane. One question is, can you explain the thought behind why no push away, why laid back is a choice for you?
Because I think it's in line with this type of recruiting. And if I'm being completely 100% transparent with them, I want 100% of them. Right? Like there should be no push away for this. It's like, yes, I in a heartbeat would want to work with every single one of the people that so and so here recommends. Let me tell you why I like working with your friend Scotty. This has worked really well. I also feel like it allows me to explain. So in the interview, what you would notice is when I explain the pay, I explain everything, the pay, the process, who your first customers are, all using the example of their friend.
Okay.
And it's all very like accurate. So Scotty, let me tell you who Scotty's first 5 customers were. They were this, and I actually go through who his first customers are, and sometimes their friends know him. And I'm like, yep. And then in his first weekend, Scotty actually sold $4,000 worth of Cutco. So his first paycheck with us, pretty exciting, was $600 for his first weekend. Now, I just want you to know that's above average, but Kevin, I would assume that your numbers would be similar to Scotty. That's why we want to work with as many of Scotty's friends as possible.
So again, the disclaimer remains that we're not looking to make a sale here on you switching to Dane's program or philosophy here. We're just having, with transparency, we're asking all the Masterclass leaders to present what's real and what they've been doing. And we'll let you sort out with your division managers whether you want to make those switches or not, or whether what he's describing is even compatible with your program or not. Again, the context here is important, though, Dane. This is a one-on-one interview, right?
Yep.
So I don't hear you bringing that necessarily in the group interview, right? Those type of numbers. But
correct.
When it's true, right? Somebody sold $4,000 and this is what around their paycheck was, and here's who they specifically sold to. And even the disclaimer of, hey, this is not normal. I'm sure he wasn't normal when she was in debate either, right? Or whatever the thing is, as you've got context for that conversation. That's part of the value of the one-on-one. How long are these one-on-one interviews, Dane? About?
When I started, I booked them 45 minutes apart. I was able, now I do them 30 minutes apart.
Okay.
I think 45 is where somebody should start to get a little feel for them, and then 30 is for most of our managers, they can get through in 30.
Okay, so somebody starting new at this, 45 is appropriate. Maybe don't try going right to the 30 there. But this is also part of the reason why we're keeping that number. We're not going for 2,000 names this year.
Right.
Dane, I'm curious because there are some division managers on the call, obviously, and we'll watch the replay. How much of this is you? How much of this is the pilot manager in Minneapolis?
So I'm going to do as many as I have time in my schedule for. Okay. And so I think this is when I think if I'm talking to any DVM, I'm like, this is worth your time 100%. I don't normally work. I've got 2 young kids. I don't normally work Sundays. My wife knows for the winter break program, I work Sundays. I work for 4 hours typically. I do it from 2 to 6, somewhere around there. My kids usually lay down for a nap at 2. They get up. I'm still working in my office by the way, I had my pilot come to my house to do this. And so I leave the office, they keep working, and I have dinner, I put my girls down to bed, and then I rejoin to see where we're at. But to give you an idea, when the first Sunday that we did this last December, my pilot and I we talked to, so again, the process is 3-way text, get them on the phone as fast as possible. We're not booking interviews via text. What we're trying to do is get them on the phone as fast as possible. When we get them on the phone, that first Sunday, we booked 45 of the 45 we talked to. So why I do this is because I'm not going to set them up for an interview when they are a layup like that. In AMPR, I'm going to book them for an interview. Josh, you asked what the efficiencies were. We had a 74% show to interview last December to FaceTime interviews, doing from this source. So when it came to these, if I booked them, I interviewed them. My pilot also was doing the same. And so of the 1,000, we probably got through 800. And then I shopped out another 200 because we couldn't get to them, to a former branch who was in my development. So this year, I think we're going to get close to 1,400 or 1,500. And so I've got myself, my pilot, who was 150K branch this last summer. And then I have 2 other branches that did 260 and 280. Mm-hmm. And so all of us will be going. So I'll probably do 500.
Gotcha.
And then we'll split up the rest amongst those 3. And then those interviews, go ahead, Dane. That Sunday. So for me this year, my first one will be Sunday, November 15th. I need to have a lot of availability that following Monday and Tuesday so that I can set them up next day, right? And so
Yeah.
what happens is those Monday and Tuesdays, I'll have anywhere from 10 to 16 one-on-one interviews. They're very long days. I also will work extra hours on those days. So for me and my schedule, I'll do them until 4:00, and then I stop until 7:30. And at 4:00, I'm with my kids, dinner, bedtime. And at 7:30, I'll hat back on. I do a 7:30, 8, 9, and 9:30.
Yeah. Dane, it's interesting. Everybody we've had on so far, I don't know why, I don't know even if I'm surprised, but it is remarkable that each of you are personally driving these programs. So it's not like a thing where, hey, once we arrive, then I just outsource it and all the other people are doing it. This is you, boots on the ground, even if you're working a split shift to get the kids down. Hey, if you didn't have kids, do you think you'd still schedule a little break in there, or would you just hammer through? What's the thinking there?
I would just hammer through. I've got a high tolerance for, working a boatload of hours. So,
Yeah.
I've got no problem going from especially it's a long day, but man, those are energizing. At the end of the day, it's like, I can't see straight, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I just accepted 12 absolute crushers today.
Right.
Like, it's impossible for me not to be excited at that point.
So this is all pre-COVID, which is crazy how long ago that feels at this point. Zoom is pretty prolific at this point. Do you think you're going to do Zoom this year or switch it over to keep it at FaceTime?
I'll probably keep it at FaceTime. I think FaceTime is a little bit more personal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because
right.
I think it's just a little different, but I'm sure it won't be 90% FaceTime. I think we'll probably do a few more.
That makes some sense.
A few more Zooms. Yep.
Yeah. I guess the one nice thing is if somebody isn't on an Apple product or something, at least you've got Zoom as an alternative.
Yeah, last year it was like, what do you, it's FaceTime video. It was, we were trying to figure out stuff, but this year will be a little bit easier.
Nice.
Hey, to answer the question to Hans and Lindsay in there too, if I have somebody in MIT who has not crushed it with their sales, I will use their example, and then I'll use an example. I'll use two. So them plus somebody who crushed it. Right? So that pay section might take a little bit longer.
Sure. And I don't hear you being afraid of promoting average numbers. I mean,
not
if
at
somebody
all.
did average, that's still great. I mean, This person has no context, right?
Right.
So average to us actually still might pretty exciting for them.
Yep.
Okay. Do you ever have the referring rep sit in on the one-on-one? Great question by Kevin Gordon here. Got a few.
I don't, because so really it's like a 3-day intense window for me. Sunday is where I load it up. Monday and Tuesday, I don't have time to talk to anybody or breathe on those 2 days. And so to also coordinate the friend being there's no chance I would finish it in 30 minutes. It need to be 45, right, to interact with them also. And Kevin, I think if I had less, I think it would help. Mm-hmm. Usually as long as that rep is prepped on what to do and what not to do, right?
If I hear you correctly, Dane, I hear you saying, hey, it's not like I'm not doing it because it wouldn't be good or couldn't be good.
Totally.
It's just more a matter of, it sounds like you're prioritizing getting through the list over even having the person there. But what an interesting thing to experiment with. Again, if you're presenting this to your DVM, you might say, hey, I'm going to work with 250. I'm going to see if I can't get the rep there for the 45-minute one. I wouldn't make it contingent upon the rep being there, but I like the idea of experimenting with it. Another great question here by Patrick Moore asking, after collection, after getting all the lists, do you have a way to prioritization method for your first Sunday calling?
So for me, I'm going to go to, I want to go to which of my MITs I most want to hit the trip. So in my experience, when I get somebody to qualify for Team Builder and it's before the push starts, they're going to sell what they need to sell to win the trip. In their mind, they're 50% of the way there, even though they're not. Right? There's two qualifications: sell 10,000, have Team Builder. They did one of the two. They're like, I'm halfway there.
Yeah.
The other half happens to be 10 grand of personal sales. But what I want is, I really want to make sure the people and so who would I classify as that, Patrick, of like, who do I need on the trip? It's who's most important to my business next summer. So this would be my key deployment or my top 1, 2, 3 people in my specific office. So I think of this summer, COVID was like the challenges that we all dealt with in our office and working afar from our staff. Like that was a challenge. My my four, I had like 7 a.m.s going to the summer. We lost a couple during the COVID March, April. Their parents were like, you shouldn't, whatever. There's a lot of stuff that happened in there. My two most consistent, my lead two, both made it on. They were the only two that were on my winter break trip. And I guarantee that gave me extra relationship, extra buying to the business. And I started with their lists the previous year, right? So it's, you also want to be mindful of whose list. Like, let's say in my mind, I have one of the people I was just talking about, Jack Ryan. He was my sales manager this summer. Jack was a rep last year. So when I did this, he was top of my list. I really want to hit his list, get him on the trip. He was sales manager this summer. So now I hit his list again to kick off the summer. So now this is his third list he's going to hand in. That's not going to be as fruitful.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm going to prioritize somebody's list that I can do 50 texts and book 7 so that I can share that with the rest of my MITs. Hey, by the way, make sure that, let's say Scotty was my first one. I really want to have a lot of success from Scotty's so that I can spread that out to everybody. And hey, here's what happened. Hopefully you're excited about yours, when I get to your list coming up.
This is really great. One of the things that's emerging for me here, and we've got some questions coming up here in the chat. Keep those going. By the way, also, if this is 7 for 7 for you, if you've attended all 7 master classes, we are trying to track that. So please drop that in the chat for us. Give us a 7 for 7 in the chat, which is just great. We have such a dedicated, wow, this chat's blowing up. Is this an unintended consequence here? Like when I think about what you're promoting here, Dane, was the idea of like, not only are we getting their lists, but we're talking about next year. So we're talking about when they've set names up, we're talking about a 10K winter break for them. So that keeps them selling. That keeps them moving forward. It gives us an excuse to have context for a conversation. It gets us thinking about them next summer. It gets them enrolled next summer. This is beyond event to event management. This is continually re-enrolling your TLA.
Let me give one more example of anybody who's got a branch manager that's going out this next year. So I have this guy this last summer, Alex Funk, and Alex hadn't really done much with Team Builder. And I said to him, I go, hey man, I'm choosing you to, and every year I do this, I'm choosing you to be our like rabbit for the PR, the Team Builder. So you didn't tell me you want to be chosen. I'm choosing you. Here's why I'm choosing you. And it's somebody that I know is a team builder. They just don't know it. They were popular, connected. Everybody liked them. And I tell them this. So for this guy, Alex, I said, look, dude, you are a team builder. You haven't done it yet. And I don't know why you've been averse to it or whatever, but you're a team builder. And let me tell you why you're a team builder. You're a team builder because number one, you were good at almost everything that you did, right? Is that accurate? Like you're above average at pretty much everything you've done. If I talk to anybody a grade above you or a grade below you in school, they would respond with positivity, right? They'd be like, oh, Alex? Yeah, right? Like you had no enemies. You were super nice and inclusive to everybody. Am I describing you? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, you're a team builder. You just don't know how to do it yet. So I want you to be the number one guy for our winter break. And here's what you get from this, right? You're going to qualify for the trip for sure. I'm going to spend extra time with you to develop this skill within you. Do you see how this would then benefit your summer, right? Do you see how this would benefit your summer? And he's like, yep. And I said, on top of that, sorry, the whole crew just
that's awesome.
Just showed up. So so for Alex, I said, hey, here's the other thing I want you to make. We knew what his territory was going to be, and it was kind of where he was from, that area. And I said, so Alex wasn't necessarily from my territory, right? And I said, Alex, we need to talk about assistant managers for next year. Here's what I want you to do. This is going to sound counterintuitive. I want you to sell out for the team builder program this winter break. And you might say, well, I want to hold those for next summer to get some AMs. I can tell you right now, if you have a friend that told you, I'm going to be your AM next summer, and they haven't sold $1 at Cutco, the likelihood of that happening is next to none. What I can tell you is if you sell out for this over winter break, we're going to get a lot of wins. You're going to get people that sell Cutco. And now you're choosing amongst people that have sold Cutco, not some fictitious, like, I think they would do well.
Sure.
Right? So let's do this. And then what we'll do is I'll hold on to the PRs from those people for you to kick off your summer. And we did that. So he launched 10 people. We had 3 10K fast starters from his PRs.
Wow.
All 3 of those guys were his AMs. this summer, and his office did 268,000. Right. And
So
one
now
of
you
those
can
guys is
promote it.
100K for the year
Yeah.
in sales.
Wow. So now it's a program. So now you can promote that this next
So that's
year as
kind of
well.
like the, you know, with every program, if we're trying to operate through the people, we need to have that like high-end achiever, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how you develop that one within your organization.
Dana, I have a question here from Patrick Moore, and folks, there's just the chat blew up. So if I miss a question that you really want us to double down on and ask for sure, and I've missed it, I've probably not filtered it out. I probably just missed it. So Patrick Moore is asking if there isn't a trip. It's a reasonable question here in 2020, right? Any ideas to still get that one-on-one connection time or still grow retention over winter going into summer?
Yeah, I mean, you can set up your own contest. You know, that's what I would say. You set up your own contest and you can do it for whatever. It could be far less in sales. It could be just participating in top 50 lists. You could also pay people to participate. If I have somebody who's like, I'm not going for the trip, I've got no problem if I know their quality of this person to say, I'll give you $100 if you participate in this top 50.
Yeah.
That's an easy win for both sides to say, yeah, $100 and just participate, have positive things to say. You could do a top golf thing in your area, right? There's a lot of
or something, right?
The reps are selling because they're new and they want to sell. It's just how do you get these top 50 lists? How do you get somebody to participate? So having a trip's easier, but there's alternatives that you can figure out for sure.
Dane, I'm assuming that there's no payout if a rep qualifies for the trip and can't go or won't go.
No payout.
So
Last year there wasn't. Who knows with this year? I could see it making sense this year with COVID stuff, but
very exciting. Very exciting. If there isn't a trip sale, still the same question there. So we got that question from Patrick Moore there. Excellent. Other thoughts here that you think we should know about here regarding so far we've got collection, we've got outreach.
I think that's it. I mean, we've got, we'll get all the approaches and videos and everything all posted. So you'll see those. Let me see real quick there we go. I can screen share now. This is the top 50 list.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really simple. First, last, sell, high school, college. How do you know them? Extra notes. The extra notes I tell them are really important because, like these are all my MITs for this year. There's a lot, but they haven't all done it. Right.
Yeah.
So, this guy, I've had numerous calls with, he hasn't done it yet.
Gotcha.
Right. This girl said it took her 30 minutes. This girl didn't have the numbers. She got to 50. So this is this year's list. She said it took her 2.5 hours to message people on social media to get their numbers so we could do it. But when they put the stuff here, the example I use to them is that I use this. Like when I talk to this guy here, Derek, is kind of like, he's a college senior, was a baseball player, a little out of shape now, right? So on my MIT call, I was joking around. I said, guys, you need to put these things on here because when I talk to Braden, who runs D2 cross country, I'm going to tell him, hey, and by the way, Derek told me that he typically beats you in almost all foot races, right? And then the group laughed. I'm like, I will say that it'll be a joke, but that'll be instant connection with this guy. So I need you to put stuff in here. Right. So then, there's not a lot else to this. And then we'd make notes on this as we go. But what's nice about this is they're not telling me, I'm doing the list. It's like, nope, I can see that you're not. Right. Like this is the best accountability that there is.
Sure. So to answer the question, if somebody says, well, do I want everybody to see everybody doing it? The answer is yes.
Yeah, right? Totally.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm just curious, Dane, it sounds like you're handling a lot of objections before they come up. You've already handled the objection of, hey, maybe I'll give you the names next summer. Obviously, there's a benefit to getting them now. Ryan Mitchell asking, one of my TLA members is hesitant to team build because he's concerned about adding more sales reps in his area, doesn't want them to steal his future customers. Thoughts on how you would get that person team building?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this was part of the conversation with Alex last year. And so this is the overarching theme of this is the conversation of abundance versus scarcity. And that's where you start the conversation. Hey, hey, Ryan, let me talk to you about this concept of abundance versus scarcity, right? Scarcity means I'm limited in everything and there's only so much to go around and right. And you could see how that would be limited. Like there's only so much money to go around. And if such and such is making a lot, I'm not going to make a lot. And, There's only so many opportunities. And Ryan, you've been here at Cutco long enough to hear us talk about abundance, right? And an abundance mindset and all of that. So let me talk to you about this point of view, right? If your point of view were accurate in terms of the actual business model that we run, we wouldn't be able to have offices stay open in the same area for long periods of time. And what I can tell you from personal experience, the areas in the country that actually have the most Cutco customers are the areas that continue to sell the most Cutco. Okay. And so a couple ways that I can show this to you. Ryan, how long have you been selling Cutco for? And Ryan's like, a month. And it's like, okay, great. So Ryan, you've been selling Cutco for a month. Somebody tells you I already have Cutco on the phone. You're like, oh, kind of a little bummed out. What happens when you actually do the demo with them? Yeah, they buy. They buy more often than they don't buy, correct? Right. So would it make sense to you that we want to have as many customers as possible? And the more that are out there, the better it is for future representatives. Let me talk to you about fair and show reps. So Ryan, you're aware that our top sales performers in our division are people on our events team. Guess what? They sell almost predominantly to people that already bought Cutco from people like you years ago. They feast on that. And so what you got to understand is that the more, like those guys on our team, Seth Kinzer, when we have a big recruiting year and there's more people out there selling Cutco, Seth's fired up because there's more Cutco customers that are happening. So Ryan, what you actually want is more people selling Cutco in your area because that actually helps your opportunity to sell Cutco. That's what I handle it.
What I love here, Dane, is it doesn't strike me that you're shaming kids for asking questions that you've handled in the past. It sounds to me like you're actually empathetically hearing them and looking to move them from where they're stuck to being unstuck.
Yep.
This would be an important nugget to grab everybody here because it's real easy. It's very tempting to be like, what? That's crazy, to dismiss them. I'm seeing the opposite here with our top people so far. Dane, I'm curious. I know I've seen this rhino a gajillion times, and people are already commenting in the chat. What is the significance of the rhino painting?
Sure. Significance, I bought it in 2009. I was a DVC. I was making more money than I ever made before. And I felt like somebody who was making money should buy art, which is dumb. So I went to a gallery in Omaha. I bought this as a single guy. My now wife, Brooklyn, hates it. So the only place this thing can live is in my office.
Dude, I love this stuff.
So it is so forever much in my office, and it's a signal of me hitting another level, I think.
I love it.
But Brooke won't let it in our house for sure.
She's like, hard no.
For a while we were dating, she was always like, yeah, I mean, it's okay. And now that we're married, she's like absolutely not.
That thing is diabolical.
Yeah.
How about verbiage of an AM/sales manager of a rep that has done the list 2 to 3 times? I think you've handled this a little bit here, but this is a reasonable question, I think, here.
Yeah. So first off, one of the things that I say to him is, hey, look, I need you to be a leader. We can talk about your list later. Not only do I need you to do it again, I actually need you to do it first. And so the reason I need you to do it first is because you're the trendsetter. They do what the cool kids do, right? So I need you, Jack Ryan, who's done this twice. And I know you're thinking, man, the people on my list, but Jack, maybe we don't even message 100% of the people. You and I can go through each person. We can talk about how many times we've reached out to them. But too, Jack, we've talked about this a lot of times. People's situations change all the time, right? And they're changing more right now than ever before. So there were people that maybe had jobs, they don't have jobs anymore. And there were also jobs that were rehiring as COVID was like settling down that are not as things are shutting back down. And I think a big thing to understand over the winter is, over winter break, the two main, company or the two main industries that are hiring a lot of our type of workforce are restaurants and retail. And if I were to ask you, Jack, over winter break, do you think people are going to be eating out more or less than last year? Less. Do you think people are going to be shopping in physical retail stores more or less? Less. So if that's the case, there's going to be less of those jobs available. So those friends that maybe would always return to whatever, it's not going to be the case. So yeah, Jack, I'm aware your list is probably going to be less fruitful than what it was the first and second time through, but I need you to do it for the team, right? To be a leader. And then you and I will figure it out from there.
It's fun. Again, just a ton of empathy here as you're dialing in with the people that are bringing these objections here. And I'm just loving your answers here, Dane. Thank you for sharing. Chris Sterrett, by the way, asked that question, and I appreciate he's putting lots of great thoughts here in the chat. I guess one of the other ones, again, is Are you having your PM assist you with the interview of the top kids as well, or is it just all you for all the interviews? That when you say 500, that's all you, right?
I'll do that. Yep.
Yeah.
And then my pilot will also do X amount, right?
And I'm just curious again.
It's not, let's say I have 200, it's not 100 and 100. I'm filling up mine first for however many I can take.
Okay.
And then I'm giving to them.
Again, forgive me, I'm just curious. Is he concurrently working while you're doing it, or like that same day he's just also working with a list, or is it once you're done, then he starts?
No. So what we'll do, so, our kickoff this year of our first Sunday doing it is November 15th.
Okay.
So our deadline was Halloween to get the lists in. And the reason that was the deadline is I have 2 weeks now to clean it up.
Sure.
Right. People that didn't meet the deadline still get them, have tough conversations that are like, hey, Jeremy, I know we talked about you being an assistant manager next year. And I know that you and I also do you remember having a conversation last week about you doing the top 50 list? Okay. Well, it didn't get done on time. Things happen. I get it. But I want you to understand one of the key parts of us working together over winter break is for us to learn each other a little bit more and for you to earn that position for the summer. In the virtual work from home world, one of the skills that I believe to be most important is follow through. Because I'm not over your shoulder. We're not working next to each other. I'm not like, hey, dude, let's go. So we already had one instance where you said, hey, I'm going to get this done. And it didn't get done. I'm willing to chalk that up as what's happened, no big deal, right? But what I need to know from you is that you can follow through. So I need you to get the top 50 list done. What do you like? Let's look at your schedule right now. Don't just tell me a time. Let's look at your schedule. What do you think? When do you have an hour that you can dedicate to this? And then he says this time, all right, hey, in order to make sure that this happens, because Jeremy, I really want to work with you next year. So I want to this has got to be a team effort. So you said tomorrow you're going to do this at 3:00. Is it okay with you if I really hold your hand on this one? I'm going to send you a text tomorrow morning to remind you. And at 2:55, right before 3:00 when you're supposed to work on it. In no way do I ever want to continue babying you like that. Right? I don't think you want that either. But is it okay just so we get a win on the board for this? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So tomorrow I'm going to text you twice. You're going to work on it for an hour. Let me know how many you have after that hour. Is that fair? Cool. And then I immediately set alarms in my phone so I don't forget, right, to text him. And then we get a win, right? But I'm teaching them along the way that what matters to me is them following through on what they say they're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping people are catching what you're almost like throwing it away here is like, hey, is that fair? That one stinger question, this is now permission-based accountability, right? So you've made the appeal that this is to help you, this is to serve you. So you're starting with why, but then you're also following through with like, hey, does that seem reasonable? Does that sound fair to you? Right? And then the follow-up, you get what you tolerate. So if you don't follow up there, that you've not served them. But you've also set that follow-up, that accountability then as a service, not a beating, not a punishment. Hey, I'm looking to support you here to go forward here. So it's accountability, but a very positive spin on accountability. This is great. From Kevin Gordon asking, are you coaching up reps on how to talk about the job, plant seeds to their friends in person? If so, what are some keys to that?
Very little. So Kevin, I'm actually doing the opposite, which is when somebody asks like, hey, how are we supposed to, I'm like, you're not. So Kevin, you're missing this. Like, hey, if you want to go and approach 50 people, let's have the conversation about how to do it. That's not what I'm asking you to do because that's a tall order. What I'm asking you to do is give zero thought to who needs a job, plug 50 names and numbers into the list, and let me do my magic. Kevin, who's going to be better at selling the job, you or me? Me. I hate to sound egotistical, but they won't get off the phone with me without booking an interview. Like I will win that conversation every time. So Kevin, what I need you to do is just put them on there. If you have a conversation with somebody, put it in the notes, but you're doing more work than is necessary. And if you want to talk to people, the one thing I need you to always remember is less is more. If you know they're going to be talking to me, don't try and get into the weeds about the job and the commission and all this. Talk about how you like it, you love your coworkers, you're growing, and you're making money. That's it.
So once again, the caveat here is always, if your division manager has a different strategy, different program than this, that's fine. We've asked Dane to just swing away without thinking, about filtering anything out. This is exactly what his program is. Not looking to sell us on that program, but I appreciate you with such great candor there, Dane, explaining your program. Kevin Hanna, good to have you here, my friend. I believe you started in Kevin's office.
Yeah.
Like, how about it?
I love it.
So Obi-Wan Kenobi is asking, how often when you reach out to the top 50, are they already familiar with Cutco Vector opportunity? And when they are familiar, are you more or less likely to schedule and recruit them?
So the first answer isn't as clear just because it really depends on the year and where the MITs are from,
Yeah.
right? So there's the certain pockets of my territory that it's like, yeah, this school, everybody knows us, that type of deal. And then some year, the majority of our top recruits for whatever reason are from schools we haven't hit up, right? Or we haven't really been in. And so it depends more on that. I think the more important answer is are they more or less likely? Because these are typically MITs or AMs that have performed well, if I can get them on the phone, they are very likely to follow through with the whole thing. And the reason is, one of the things I like about this is that the MIT, if they started in May and they recommended their friends then, there is still that element of like, is this real? Is it really going to work out? Is it whatever? Now I can be like, your friends worked here for X amount of months. They've made X amount. So there's just so much more proof than what there was originally. I also sell hard when I'm talking to them about winter break is the best time of the year to start the job because there's no strings attached. Look, if you find out after doing it for 2 weeks that you don't love it, you still get the resume builder and you don't even have to quit because you're going back to school, right? So you leave the job great and you have that stuff on your resume. So my opinion, this is the best time of the year for somebody to start. If somebody's like, maybe I'll start in the summer, I'm like, well, why don't you do training over winter break? Right? Do the job for a week, 2 weeks, however long you have, get a feel for it. That way you actually know if you want to do it in the summer, not like, yeah, I think maybe I want to. Doing a knife job is weird, right? So if you're thinking about it without actually even done it for 4 months, you're probably going to be like, no, I'm going to do this other thing.
Dude, I appreciate this. We're at the 60-minute mark already. You believe that? This is so cool, man. And we talked about the idea of 5 or 6 different topics we could dive into today. We've done one. Right? So, folks, if there are specific questions that you feel could not be answered by looking at the subsequent videos we're going to post and the verbiage, etc., we're going to post all that in a link that we'll send out in that generic email that you've been getting each week. We send that on Wednesdays to everybody, but the information is available on Tuesdays on the BMDM group. If you're looking for it, we can get it to you. Dealer's choice, though, Dane. Is there anything that you need to mop up here with this topic, or do we go into deployment, dreams, CSP development? What would fire you up for the remaining 27 minutes we have here today?
I feel like this is good. I think where we're at with this is good. There's the basics to at least move with, and we've got the supporting documents and videos.
It's such an outstanding foundation, Dane. I really appreciate you sharing all this. And again, if you're joining us, the setup here was $828,000 shipped over December and January this past year with this AMPR program. So a lot of that, of course, was a CSP business as well. So that might make some sense for us to touch on. But over $220,000, I want to say, of it was new business over those 2 months. So great work here, Dane. And when we start hearing you unpack everything, there's no luck involved. There really is a program strategy that is duplicatable, not just for you, but for your offices in your division. Obviously, the central region starting to get a bump. And it sounds like you're taking pages out of other people's book as well, like Midwest region. So,
totally.
Hey, thank you for this. We really appreciate it. And again, boy, with your kids there and your family like right there are things you could be doing right now instead of investing into us. So hey, even before we're done, thank you so much for investing into our community. This masterclass, it means a ton. And I believe that better than ever, we're going to be able to follow up on this more than years past even. So boy, between relationships and developing those and using dreams to be able to kind of have common language with your people and helping to envision / the CSP, I mean, you don't do 828 without a robust CSP team. You don't ship 100,000 this past week without that CSP team. Does it make sense to unpack a little bit here with that?
Yeah, I obviously I'm super passionate about the CSP stuff as well. And, my point of view has changed on as I've been in the business longer. So yeah, I think that's a
I mean, as I survey our attendees today, and by the way, we have 14 people that we're aware of that have attended all 7 of the master classes so far. So there's and if I was to ask for the 6 for 7, go ahead and drop those in the chat too, because I'm curious. It's a pretty fierce core here so far and very serious students. So if we were to actually angle this more towards, hey, when you started building this thing, Dane, what did you do to start building that CSP core, whether you had existing CSPs already that you kind of adopted or building them from scratch in your basement.
Yeah. So, I mean, I built some as a new, so my kind of trajectory, I was a DM in Racine, Wisconsin for 2.5 years. And I built FSMs there, right? Somebody's old term, but FSM before being a CSP. And so I built some FSMs there, Nick Santiago being one who's, now I think he's in $1 million. And like, I only worked with him for those first 2.5 years, but then I moved to Omaha, Nebraska. I got promoted to be a DVC after 2.5 years. I went there. There was one existing CSP. So I was able to work and kind of learn with that. But there was a few reps that were there, and that was a great experience for me because now I'm working with some people that weren't mine, right? CSP, but also some reps. And then I was there for 4 years, and then I moved to Minneapolis, same position, right? Still a division manager, but a larger territory. And there was a few more CSPs up here. So I feel like my experience has been from, moving a few times has helped because I've worked with people that weren't mine, and then also and then developed my own as well. And so where I think that it really comes from is relationship first. And one of the easiest shifts that I think a manager can make is when they're promoting the vector opportunity, they're promoting the full vector opportunity. And forever, the promotion within the company was run an office, management. And then it was like, oh yeah, and then we got these guys over here who are CSPs. Right. And it's like, well, how does somebody do the CSP thing? And people are like, don't worry about that. But let's talk about management. Right. And so what I did was I shifted from the get-go, from training. I talk about the career sales opportunity. From every division meeting, I introed them just like I introed our management. And I would go through, when I talked about the advancement opportunity was, here's your management opportunity, here's your sales opportunity, professional sales opportunity. And then the thing that I've made very clear throughout is that almost every single CSP was back and forth. Not everyone, but it is so normal. And this is something that's underrated about Vector. In most businesses, so this is how most businesses are structured, right? You become a top salesperson and then they take you into management. And I've used the example of my dad that this has stayed with me forever. My dad was in sales management my entire childhood growing up in agricultural seed sales. And then when I was a junior in high school, he got laid off. He went then into the financial sector, became a financial advisor. And he did that, he was in his 50s. So he did well. He knew what he was doing. And I remember being a college student at Madison, my dad coming for a football game and us catching up. And he said, hey, some news. I just got offered the brokerage position for the Milwaukee, this area of Milwaukee for Merrill Lynch. I said, oh, that's awesome. Congrats. He goes, oh, but I didn't take it. And I said, why didn't you take it? He goes, I hate management. I said, you've been doing management for the last 15 years. He goes, yeah, I hated it. And I'm like, wait, what? And he gave me his full story that I never knew up until that point, which is he was great at sales. He liked sales, got into management, liked it, kind of got handcuffed to the salary and the role. It was hard for him to get back. And he just stayed in it forever. But now given the opportunity, a second career, he's like, no way do I want to deal with other people. And so I use this as an example in Leadership Academy. I'm like, how great would it have been for him to be in an organization that encouraged taste testing both? Hey, you know what? Go run a branch. See what you think about managing other people, right? And here's what you're going to find. You're going to learn more about anything in branching. You learn about yourself. And you will heighten your sales expertise by coaching, right? You're going to see all the lame excuses that you use all the time, right? Oh, I can't because of this. And you're going to hate all of them because you hear them from other people. So you automatically won't use those as much when you go back into sales, right? So let me give you the story of Seth Kinzer, right? He branched, he had a mediocre experience, and he decided sales was for him. Let me tell you about Burt Wicks. Let me tell you about, right? And I can go through for our division, the ones that, had the experience with both. So I think proper promotion of both opportunities matters so that they know that both are vibrant, both are exciting. One's not better than the other. I think that's number one. I think number two is is my relationship. This could be number one, my relationship with that person, in making sure that they understand I don't have an agenda for them. Hey, I'll tell you what my agenda is, Hans. I want to work with you. So Hans, if it were up to me, you would be here within North Star Division for the next 5 to 10 years. That's what I would love, as long as you're continuing to grow and save money. In what capacity? I don't really care. And odds are we're not going to know right today in terms of what's right, because you're going to evolve, you're going to develop, and you might change what you want to do. So I think having that relationship with them matters. And then being very honest with them in terms of where you see them at. Like, I feel like because I'm very straightforward with them and they know that I value our CSPs as much as our DMs, that if I tell them, hey, I think that you'd be suited here, they know that it's not like, oh, he's just trying to get another manager. He just wants another, right? And I lean on other people a lot. So it's, hey, if you're considering wanting to be on the Fair and Show team, why don't you, let's schedule, is it okay if I connect you with Seth, Bert, and John, and you get some calls with those guys? If you're also considering management, could I connect you with 3 managers? I want you to talk to them. I don't ever give those people an agenda. I'm not like, hey, make sure you talk about this. I'm like, can you give them some time and talk to them? I also know what their beliefs are on it because we've had a lot of conversations.
So that's amazing to me, just the idea of properly promoting both opportunities. It's not swinging the pendulum too far one way or the other. And folks, again, we're typically encouraging you to talk this through with your DVM, something like a philosophy of how we develop people, as long as it's not contradicting something that your division program is. I think this is one of those things that you can kind of change on the fly, journal it out, get clear in terms of what you believe about this, and then start to make some shifts, start to make some changes. I could see the post in the chat already. I took the notes. I don't have an agenda for you. I just want to work with you. I don't care whether it's on the rep side or the management side. 5 years, I'd like to still be getting time with you. What a beautiful way to kind of promote that. And you implied it here that some of the best CSPs have management experience. I mean, not just Seth. I mean, you go down Chris, Jake Hughes, et cetera. And, I think Bert might even have experience too. But the idea is that
he branched also. And then he was an AM for me for 2-3 summers. Yep.
I mean, properly promoting what the benefit of that would be, even if the sales experience, if you're not tearing the cover off the ball, there's still tremendous benefit to set you up. And folks, I'll tell you this, I mean, to Dane's point, Ivani Fast, one of the best CSPs in North America, I think she's top 5 all time. She was a super talented division manager. I mean, I think actually she was a district that was tracking towards division manager, and absolutely to this day a sophisticated leader, a very nuanced leader, and the skills that she learned as a district manager, again tracking to become a DVC, it was hers to kind of turn down, and then moving into the CSP world, she's so much happier as a CSP. And I'm so glad, to your point, Dane, that we found an opportunity so we didn't just lose those people, that we could actually maintain them. My grandfather did the same thing at Procter & Gamble. He turned down an opportunity to get promoted. And what they would do is when they had international presidents at P&G, they would cycle them through him and have him field train them and let them see what the sales experience was with him. The best companies find ways to keep the best talent and don't railroad them all necessarily just into management. Right.
Yep. And I would even say, so my pilot that was my pilot for the last year and a half, she's phenomenal at sales. And she was very much considering going CSP instead of DM. And we had a serious conversation. And I definitely, I didn't say you must do this, but I said, I want you to talk to those guys. And if you're thinking about you 5 years from now, 10 years from now, all this, what's the skill that you need to gain? And she decided it was influence. I said, you're going to get that running an organization. It does not mean that you can't get that as a CSP. It's just a different amount of time that it's going to take for you to get there. And what we're also seeing now in Vector is the other way. People that are CSP that are going, right? Like case in point, Kyle Lopes. Hans is on here. Hans has sold a boatload of Cutco as a CSP and then now successful DM. And so it's happening, we're missing people, as I say that. I realize I hate calling people out because now I see Trade Payment here too. I think sold a bunch. But yeah, you get the idea.
I love too that you're using context and questions to get more information before you diagnose. So even if you see, we're talking about Colleen here, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're talking about Colleen, is a wildly talented person,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes as managers we get this sunk cost fallacy in our brain, like, hey, I've invested a year and a half as a pilot manager,
Yeah.
I must promote you to district, and that's actually, we don't have to do anything like that at all. The
Right.
best thing for the best thing is always the best thing. The best thing for this person is always the best thing,
Yeah.
right? So by asking questions, what do you really want? And that wasn't a simple answer. It sounds like it might have even been a gap between conversations where she came back and was like,
Yeah.
hey, influence.
Well, it was ongoing, and it was also, and for her it was, and we deal with this all the time, right? She's
Mm.
like, I've been here since I was 18. I don't know what else is out there. I said, look, I can't coach you on what else is out there because
Yeah.
I've been here. So I'm not telling you to not explore. I'm telling you to do exactly that. Go explore.
Mm-hmm.
And so talk to other people in other industries that you think you'd want to do while also talking to DMs and CSPs here.
Mm.
And so if you're to do that, I can, because so many people want to do this whole like, well, what else is out there? And then they sit on that. It's like, well, if you're not going to take action, I'm just going to assume you're going to be here.
Right.
So either
Right.
go find
Yeah.
out and have those conversations, or let's not talk about that. But every time that you bring it up, there was another month that went by that you didn't take any action. So go and find out, talk to people, talk to friends, parents, talk to your customers that have these different jobs. And if your relationship is great with them, they're going to bring it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, so many managers operate out of fear. Well, I don't want them to go talk to their customers because then they're going to get offered a job.
Sure.
Yeah. I hope to God they get offered jobs. So they recognize like, hey, this is a pretty good place to be. Right. And that's one of the things I teach our reps too. Like, hey, if you get offered a job after being here for a month, you could take it, but you could also say, I must be onto something if I've been here for a month and people are already wanting me to work there. Imagine if you were here for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or 24 months, what kind of offers that you would get at that point, right? Are you selling a little early?
What I love here is, Dane, you already referenced the abundance mindset, but you're modeling it here, right? So when you're saying, hey, kick other tires, go turn over some other stones, go on some interviews. But I also love that you're pressurizing them from the inside out. There's an out there when you say, because it's abundant. It's like, I'm not afraid of you finding a great opportunity out there. You're a vector trade. You are a super talented person. You're going to get offers. Hey, let's talk through them, because I want to make sure that you, sometimes when the grass seems greener over there, and people, I've seen it, they leave here and they hate it over there. A lot of promises are made, etc. And to be able to help talk them through it, again, emerging with questions, what's best for them, and asking the question there. Thoughts to that, Dane?
One other thing that I do in these, and this is, you got to be, I don't want to say careful. You just need to make sure that you back this up. But one of the things that I say regularly in these situations is I say, hey, Trent, there's one more thing I need you to consider, and it's our relationship. And what I mean by this is, how much I pour into you, how many conversations we have, how much I'm concerned about your development, this and that. I don't know what your other opportunities outside out of Vector are. What I could encourage you to do is, when you talk to people outside, ask what their relationship is with their superior. If that's, I don't like that name, but
Sure.
The person that you're going to be answering to, and ask about that, because that's something that a lot of people take for granted. What I want you to understand, I'm going to say this to you. I say this to a lot of people. I feel confident saying that for the rest of your working career, you're probably not going to have a manager that's going to have the relationship with you that you and I have. And I that might not show up in most people's pros and cons, but I think that it should. So I want you to think about our relationship as you do that. Not that you're entitled to stay here, but what's going to be best for your development as an individual.
This is a big one, Dane, because I know that this functioned for me when I was up in Canada running an office there and reporting to Joe Cardillo. I mean, that relationship towed me through a ton of waves, good days, bad days, but that was a precious, still remains to this day, a precious relationship that I have had for 27 years. And I'm not quick to forsake that influence. And the same thing now with John Kane. Now, some of you have heard me say before, hey, I still like the man I'm becoming, being here. And you're keying in on that. Dane, you've been one of the most altruistic examples of leadership that we can point to in the company. So for you to access that and kind of bank on that is not only appropriate, I think it can help people from underestimating the value of that. That's what I was kind of saying earlier, is that we might not think that one through until it's too late.
Mhm.
And I would imagine this, Dane, maybe you can speak to it. When somebody does leave, that exit interview or that last conversation, so that there's still always an open door. There's no blown bridges, man. Like there'll always be a spot here for you.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that we necessarily will have a district opportunity for you here. Like you might have to get back in line, but you and I are still good. Can you speak to that when people do leave?
Yeah. When people leave, it's, I think of, if you're having these conversations, so part of this also comes from what my view is of my division, and you can do this as a district, but for me, I've been building and wanting to build and am building towards a $10 million division. So if I'm not looking at names and I'm just looking on paper of that organization and how it breaks down, I have a lot of DMs and a lot of CSPs. So I really don't care where somebody goes if they think that that's the better fit for them, right? What I care and what everybody hears within my organization is growth is an expectation within our organization. So if you're a CSP, my expectation is that you will grow year to year. And then I actually have conversations with them to say, hey, Seth, you did X last year. I expect that you grow this next year, but I don't expect that you work harder. And so I really challenge the way that they think in terms of this business. It doesn't have to equal more hours, more CPO. And in fact, that means that you're not getting any better if that's what it is. It can equal more hours, even more CPO. And some of my CSPs are in what I call the customer acquisition phase, which they should be grind until you have that big customer base that you can kind of rely a little bit more on. But the growth expectation is there. So they know if while you're working with the North Star, you're going to be growing. And if not, it's just not, this isn't the right place for you. And I model this for myself. And I'm very vocal about I'm trying to get better results with a little less time as my family grows. So they know what I'm doing. And they also, that helps with a lot of things. They value my time. I value their time, right? If we set something up, it's important that they follow through with it. And I'm also leading them in the same way to say, I want you to do this. When they leave, it's absolutely, the door is always open, right? And it forever will be. And I keep in contact with them. The one thing I always make sure that they know is, hey, I just want you to know I'm going to reach out less. And it's not because I don't want to continue the relationship. I have so much time. My family's growing, so that's taking more time. And then all the conversations they have to have with work. So I want you to know the door is always open for you to reach out. It just might not be me reaching out often, but I will always return communication. I'm always there for you, recommendation, anything that you need.
It's a really great caveat there at the end, because I think somebody might misinterpret lack of communication from us or lack of initiation from us, which is robust while they're here. And that's appropriate. It's also appropriate that it is less, but to explain why, I think is really valuable, and it gives you an out there later. Dane, something that a mutual mentor that we both had, Dave Durand, used to say all the time, which is something to the effect of, hey, we really want you. Just so you know, we don't need you, but we really want you.
Yeah.
Right? This division's going to hit 10 million with or without you. I would love for you to be here, but also the world needs other great doctors and financial planners that are vector trained. So, go get them. And to be able to set that up at the beginning there, it sounds like that's consistent with what you're describing there too. Boy, only a few minutes remaining here. Again, if we were to say dealer's choice again, anything that you either want to put like a cherry on top here for some of the CSP discussion or the relationships, there's tons that you've just even peeled some layers back here for us with regards to relationships and philosophies that you have in terms of dealing with people. Thoughts that are just even random that you want to just hit us with.
I think part of it is, and we hear this all the time at Vector, but we're the lid to our people. I totally believe that. And I've seen it in my organization. And what I would tell you as the motivation to continue to focus on personal growth is knowing that when you see other people's organizations, because this was me for many years, it was like, I want that. I want that. I want that. And it's like, picture who you'd have to be in that situation. And that's what you're working towards. Those people, you think about how many people we work with on a regular basis, right? And when I say regular basis, like how many people come through your door on any given year? It is a lot. So we have all of those people come through our organizations all the time, but they aren't always stopped or compelled to stop and say, I want to stay here. And so it could be that you had a bad day. It could be that you haven't been growing, but maybe they come into your interview in your office and, virtual office on the day that you are on fire, that you did wake up early, that you did work out, that you got it in, right? That you did read some personal growth stuff, that you journaled and you planned and you showed up ready. And that just happened to be the interview that they were in that day. And now that changes your organization, right? And so it's kind of that commitment of, I've seen it happen so many times that one person can change an organization. Like one person within your organization can change the direction of it. And I take that a step back even further to say one day for you of personal growth can be that day that changes the organization. And so, yes, it is a compound effect of over and over and over again. But just because you miss a day doesn't mean that you ruined everything that you've done, right? So it's the whole like, hey, if you had a week that you were kind of on fire and then you had 2 days that you didn't do so great, it's okay. You might have had some wins in there that are going to carry you through the next time. The last thing, as our division's name is North Star Dream Team, and the dream stuff has been really big for us. And this is something I think is a core tenet of my people that know I care a lot more about them than their CPO, right? This year for our CSP holiday thing, I'm spending more money on them than I did last year, and they're producing far less than they did last year because I think they need the love a little more.
Yeah.
Right. And it's showing that you're not a dollar amount to me. I'm excited about growing the business, and I'm going to spend a little extra money on you this year because I know that you need to feel special. And most of the money that I spend on people in my organization is going to go towards their dreams list. So I have a copy of everybody's dreams list. That's what I'm using for holiday gifts. Last year, I bought people singing lessons, guitar lessons, like those types of things, because I'm looking through their dreams list, right? To say, what do they want? What's something cool? And then they remember that type of stuff. That's, it's like that they know that that's as authentic is like to my core in terms of what I enjoy with them. On that line of thinking, it's, can you do the things that are so unexpected that let people know that you care about people? I had, this is the last kind of story I'll leave you with, but I had this girl, Morgan Phillips, that got started in May, first training group of May. And Morgan she just broke her K-Club streak 2 weeks ago, I think it was. So 20 some weeks. She sold 80,000 this summer. Awesome. Right. And she is, super introverted. When we have her speak, she's great, but she's just very introverted, and she's coming out of her shell with us. And she's been struggling with some stuff like all students, living at home still now and back under parents' rule, not leaving the house. I'm an adult, but I can't make my own decisions. I'm attending class. She goes to Howard University, but not really because she's at home. Yeah. So she's struggling with all this. Well, she also got sick. She broke her streak, right? I didn't call her. I went online and sent her a $25 gift certificate from Starbucks. And in the memo of it, it said, all streaks come to an end. Here's to the next one. Thank you so much for all your leadership. You mean the world to us. Right. She then wrote me a handwritten thank you note, a la LA division, Southlander. But she wrote me a handwritten note. And I know that like when she leaves Vector, whenever that is, hopefully it's, after she's done with college or maybe even beyond that's something that she's going to remember from her time at Cutco, was when she felt at her bottom. It wasn't like, oh, we're not even going to talk to you now. Right. It was, no, you're awesome. Let's bring you back up as much as we can. And so it's that type of stuff, because we have a tendency in a sales organization to only recognize top performers at their best. And man, it's tiring in a sales culture. You all feel it. We live in a culture of what have you done lately? And so it feels great when somebody's there to say, hey, it's all right. We know who you are, when it's one of the bad days, bad weeks, bad months, bad campaigns.
Wow. What a great story. I appreciate you sharing that, Dane, and what a great reminder that you are not your number, not just for us on the call. You are not your number, but also to treat people like, hey, you are not your results. You are not your number. I care about you either way for sure. And it's in those moments, man, where I think we buy a ton of loyalty. In those moments when you've got them dead to rights or a weak moment, and not only do you not like, we missed it, that sucks, huh? It's like, hey, I recognize this, I saw it, and looking forward to the next one. That actually is what a positive spin, and almost helping somebody pivot out of the remorse that I think would be natural and even called for to a certain extent. If I'm on for 80 some weeks or whatever it was, to have that come to an end, man, I'd be sad for a minute here, but to send them a gift card and to encourage them, man, what a beautiful move there. Empathy's come up. We used the word altruistic earlier. Dane, thank you again for investing into our group. We know that this is such a it's a life work for you. It's really more of even a vocation thing. Probably one of your dreams is to be able to invest into people like you're doing right here. I guess a question here, if people wanted to go deeper on some of the dreams materials that you had, I know that you've covered some of the SLC. Is there a place that you could direct us to, or a year even?
I'm trying to think. So SLC, a little bit on the podcast.
Yeah.
On mine, on Dan's podcast or whatever, we talked a little bit on it there, but we lead, it's kind of we call it dreamscaping. It's their brainstorming or dreamstorming, excuse me, where they go through and we help them create their list. We do it. Our end of the summer event is called the Dreams Retreat. And we create it there. And then I do it individually not individually, but I do it with a CSP meeting each year as well, where they add more. We bring the spouses in. It's really cool. So,
and there's a whole book on this, the Dream Giver by Matthew Kelly. So if you wanted to just do this, but I would direct you to, you can copy some of the stuff that Dane is doing, but it literally is as simple as, hey, let's talk about your dreams. Go ahead and make a list of 100 things, 100 dreams that you'd be excited about. If you wanted to go deeper, read Matthew Kelly's The Dream Giver.
Dream Manager, my bad. The Dream Giver is a different book. The Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly there. Parting shots here. Last word to you, Mr. Espegard. I'd say embrace. I mean, kind of similar to my SLC message. Embrace where we're at in the business. Right. We are in the capture as much as you can and take advantage of this, because these are those sweet spots that people talk about that are old. Right. Of like, I remember this run in real estate and this. It's like that's what we're in right now. And I hate to be the person at the end of it that let the whole thing go by. So take advantage.
Thank you, Mr. Espegard. We're going to conclude today's recording with this, and we're going to stick around for a couple extra minutes here just in case we can mop up any questions we missed there in the chat. But once again, thank you, Mr. Espegard. An outstanding session here today, and with people like you leading, man. Josh Thayer said it great. After hearing all this, it's no surprise why your team and your division absolutely crushes it. So thanks again, my friend.
You bet. Thank you.